Good morning, good morning. Thank you all for being here. The first thing I'm going to do is silence my cell phone. You are welcome to join me. Welcome to the World Affairs Council of Atlanta, where we empower Atlantans to lead globally. My name is Rickey Bevington, the council's president. We're a nonpartisan nonprofit membership organization, and throughout the year we curate forums, roundtables, and briefings that prompt new thinking on critical global issues and how we as Atlantans can contribute to shared challenges and opportunities. The council also provides global leadership training for early career professionals to cultivate Atlanta's next generation of globally minded leaders. Before we begin, I would like to take a moment to recognize representatives of Atlanta's Consular Corps as well as trade offices. Billy Chung of the Taipei Economic and Cultural Office, thank you for joining us. Sung Ho Soo, Consul General of Korea, thank you for joining us, Consul General. We also have a representative from the Consulate of Belgium. Thank you for being here, Maxine. The opinions today are those of the speaker and not of the World Affairs Council of Atlanta. Meeting is on the record. It is being recorded as well as live. And now for today's program entitled Foreign Policy in Action, How Diplomacy Works for Atlanta, featuring Jose Fernandez, Under Secretary for Economic Growth, Energy, and the Environment. We will open the program with remarks by the Undersecretary, and then we'll move to fireside chat and audience Q&A. You all have time to ask your questions. And afterward, we have lunch right outside for those of you who pre-ordered it with your registration. And you can then come back here and eat if you'd like. It is my pleasure to introduce today's esteemed speaker, Jose Fernandez, who was confirmed by the Senate on August 6, 2021. He leads the State Department's bureaus and offices that stand at the center of the Biden-Harris administration's efforts on climate change, clean energy, health, supply chain security, and other economic priorities. Undersecretary Fernandez is also the United States alternate governor to the World Bank, the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, and the Inter-American Development Bank. Prior to his most recent appointment at the Department of State, Undersecretary Fernandez was a partner at Gibson, Dunn and Crutcher, LLP in New York. His practice focused on mergers and acquisitions and finance in Europe and emerging markets, advising U.S. and foreign clients in the telecommunications, energy, water, banking, and consumer industries. He was named one of the world's leading lawyers by Chambers Global for his M&A and corporate work, a highly regarded practitioner by the International Finance Law Review, and one of the world's leading privatization lawyers by Euromoney Publications. The Undersecretary graduated from Dartmouth College, and he earned a Juris Doctor from Columbia University School of Law. Welcome to the podium, Undersecretary Fernandez.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Delighted to be here. Let me also give my special thanks to my colleagues from Taiwan, Korea, Belgium. All three are places that I've been to in this job. Delighted that I came. Thank you, Rickey, for the introduction. Thank you for the World Affairs Council of Atlanta for inviting me to this event, and I'm delighted to speak about my work to this fantastic organization that's dedicated to global engagement at the local level. And that's a lot of what I will talk about, is how we globally engage at the local level. At the State Department, we very much appreciate all that you're doing to provide opportunities to create international connections and engagement to the residents of Atlanta. And the fact is that organizations like yours make great partners. They make great partners because they make the case as to why everyone has to be involved in foreign policy. Foreign policy is not only for diplomats, with all apologies to my colleagues, but it's also for foreign policy to be successful, for those of us who do this for a living to be successful, every citizen has to play a role in creating and building this project. And by broadening the conversation, by taking it beyond foreign policy and taking it to global issues, you help our job. Because at the end of the day, our job is to make foreign policy work for them. And that's particularly true in Atlanta, where you're home to the busiest airport, and interconnections are part of what. But the Biden administration is dedicated to a foreign policy for all, building a world that's more secure, stable, and more prosperous for all of us. And we're doing that in part by advocating for American businesses, American workers, helping companies that are exporting to do so efficiently and effectively, and also helping foreign businesses in countries best in the United States. I'm particularly intrigued in the time that I have been here in Atlanta by the impact of foreign investment in this town. The impact in terms of new industries, of critical industries that are important to the clean energy transition, and at the same time, industries that are leading to the creation of jobs and strengthening global supply chains. But let me just back up for a second and share a larger picture of how I think foreign policy has been important, as well as in Georgia more broadly. You've all heard of the Inflation Reduction Act, the IRA. It was passed in August of 2022, and since then, Georgia has been the second largest recipient in the U.S. of green technology jobs, able to create almost 17,000 new jobs in new industries, and you've also caused investors to sit up and take notice of Georgia. We've been working to deepen energy cooperation in countries overseas in order to create American jobs and increase trade and investment in the U.S. that will benefit Atlanta's Georgia's across the state. And foreign direct investment is critical to the Inflation Reduction Act. It's important to the clean energy transition that we're all doing. Production and investment credits from the Inflation Reduction Act are intended to incentivize electric vehicles, wind turbines, solar panels, and batteries. And one example that I've been very familiar with, and not only because we have some colleagues here in South Korea, is the work that you have been doing with Korea in order to bring more investment from South Korea here. In early 2022 and in 2023, spent some time in Seoul, and it was right after the Inflation Reduction Act was passed. And to be frank, Korean companies were a little bit confused as to what the Inflation Reduction Act was for them. They were afraid that it would hollow out their industry at home. They were afraid that it would hurt investments in the U.S. The fact of the matter is that at the time, and as I discussed with them at the time, we expected as much as 60% of electric vehicle batteries in the U.S., in cars in the U.S., to come from Korea. So this was an opportunity that Korea had, and I'm very glad to see what you put. Yesterday, I went to Hanwha Q-Cells, Dalton. Hanwha has invested already $5 billion. Plus, in Georgia, it's intending to bring an additional investment of $2.5 billion into the state, and it's doing so by providing new technologies, by training workers. And I spent a lot of the visit was intended for me to have a tour of the technology, to learn about their investments. But I was really interested in, though, it was when the discussion turned to workforce development. And we heard, for example, that Hanwha brings eighth graders into their factories to learn about what they do, just become part of the community and start, frankly, talking to some of their future workers going forward. And that was that kind of cooperation with the community is something that impressed me, and it's something that I have seen throughout my trip here. It's something that Georgia, and it's something that at the State Department, and I'll talk about this in a minute, we're trying to do further. One of the things that we're trying to do is through the State Department, through our sort of foreign policy, ivory towered work. We're trying to bring jobs that help American people. We're trying to help industry here. We're trying to help modernize our energy. And that's gonna benefit local communities. That if you take anything away from my conversation today, we're doing at the local level through foreign policy. Other Korean companies have noticed Georgia's fantastic business climate, and I guess word gets around quickly, especially since there's a promotion agency office that opened here in Atlanta. But in 2022 alone, Korean firms invested almost $12 billion in the U.S., including $5.5 billion from Hyundai. I already talked about Hanwha as well, LKSG and others who talked to me when I was in Seoul about what they were looking to do. But frankly, the reason why they were attracted to Georgia had little to do with the State Department. It had a lot to do with the work that we've been doing here to try to attract companies, try to provide kinds of incentives that they need. Although, if you ask me in public, I will take a little bit of credit for it. I did tell them that it was a big place. These are investments that are creating thousands of good-paying jobs here, lowering costs, and also from a macro point of view, are helping to combat the climate crisis. So it's easy for me to say. I very much look forward to welcoming more firms from Korea and from elsewhere to join us here in the U.S. in the years to come as we aim to transition to a clean energy. But your achievements go beyond what you've been able to do. Georgia's trade with South Korea reached about almost $10 billion last year, but the state does hundreds of billions of dollars trade with countries around the world. And in this aspect, FDI, foreign direct investment, is vital for the creation of U.S. jobs and strengthening. Why are we so interested? A couple of years ago, no one really talked about global supply chains, and then COVID ravaged many of us. Diversifying of supply chains will stabilize prices, will ensure that we can deploy the technologies of the future in the energy space. Unless we're able to secure our supply chains, unless we're able to diversify and expand our supply chains, we may not achieve the clean energy future of the world. Things will become more expensive, they will become more scarce. So diversifying supply chains is not only an opportunity, it's a strategic imperative for the State Department. We're working to build stronger supply chains from healthcare and medical equipment to semiconductors. We talk about the CHIPS Act, if you like, critical minerals for electric vehicle batteries in the U.S. and around the world, but also to try and address the vulnerabilities that are created by some countries trying to coerce other countries into taking action by withholding. In the CHIPS space, the CHIPS Act provided $52 billion for us to diversify our semiconductor supply chains in the U.S. The State Department received $500 million for 5 years, and what we're trying to do with that is to build new partnerships throughout the hemisphere in order to help our domestic manufacturers here by helping on testing, packaging, and other downstream activities. With all of these projects, and a lot of these touch on Georgia. Georgia could very well become a leader. It is already a leader, building the supply chain of tomorrow. This will be key to supporting the Georgia businesses and technologies that are needed for the clean energy. In all of these examples, All these examples that I shared. We see firsthand the impact that diplomacy and the State Department's engagements have in promoting economic security, prosperity for people in this state and elsewhere in the U.S. And to achieve that goal of bringing our work, our international work, to a local space, form central connections with cities, counties, state, and community leaders in Atlanta, in Georgia, and elsewhere to ensure that local voices resonate on the international stage and that the perspective of local leaders is reflected in our foreign policy. As we continue to pursue the implementation of a foreign policy for all Americans, recognize the importance of delivering benefits to local communities, jobs, of delivering investment, and promoting technology transfer, as well as integrating ideas from our cities and communities with policy making. We've created a subnational diplomacy unit under one of my bureaus, and that's one of the reasons that brought me here. We had my colleague who leads that office was here, I think, last year, Nina Ashigan. Nina was very much impressed by the opportunities and possibilities here, by the passion and partnership, and her passion and her conclusions have been picked up by our Secretary of State. Secretary Blinken last month spoke at the Conference of Mayors in Washington, D.C. He talked about how everything that we're trying to do in our foreign policy is actually reflected or should be reflected in the work that our local General LaGuardia used to talk about. There was no Republican or Democratic way of picking up the garbage. And so that's what we have to get away from the ideological space at the local level, and try to help our community dealing with clean air, water, transportation, plastic pollution. All of that is reflected in our. So, Ricky, let me close by just basically emphasizing that the reason I'm here, the reason I'm talking to you, the reason I'd like to maintain this conversation is that we want to bring the benefits of foreign policy to the local level. I'll just cite 4 lines of effort that I'd like you to think about. 1, helping Georgia increase opportunities for foreign direct investment in its cities. Secondly, something I haven't talked about, we could spend more time if you like on it, is increasing the people-to-people exchanges that we have between countries. Our policy at the end of the day is a very personal affair, and the connections that we all make help us all in our international work. So the people-to-people exchange opportunities. Thirdly, I think we have to continue to open up opportunities, local leaders, diplomats, and other subnational actors to address issues that are every day on our radar screen: climate change, transportation, water, plastics pollution. And then lastly, I think we need to be working on helping Georgian businesses success in foreign markets. Another piece of the puzzle at the State Department is our commercial diplomacy. Diplomacy office works with the Department of Commerce and others to help companies when they go abroad to either export, to finance, or to invest in other countries. And that we often become an unpaid advisor to foreign companies looking to do business. And that's a 4th line of effort. And I'd like to continue working on that way. And look, organizations like yours, frankly, grapple every day with our biggest international challenges from economic inequality to climate change to dependent democracy. And you're leading the way in trying to support communities as they work in a much more globalized world. We will continue coming down here. We will continue to support and encourage you to engage internationally. And I hope that we can continue involved with the city of Atlanta because of what you've been able to do already, because of the vibrant international community, global interconnections that you've already been able to create. So with that, Rickey, thank you for inviting me on. I look forward to our conversation.
You can see right here. I have a here. Okay. Well, welcome to Atlanta. Can everybody hear me in the back? Carrie, can you hear? Yeah? Okay, great. So you've been here for almost 24 hours.
Actually, a little bit more.
Okay, great. So tell us what you've learned about Atlanta and Georgia.
Well, so I mean, I've been here before. I have met with the Atlanta Metro Chamber on Marcel. I have met with a number of other local leaders. Frankly, I also learned a lot about Atlanta as I went around the world. Whatever you're doing here is attracting a lot of interest. And I use Korea as an example. At one point, I did ask, I think that may have been an SK, what about the other 49 states? And the District of Columbia? They seem to be very fixated in the opportunities. And so it dawned on me that, you were doing good work at the local level, obviously at the state level, representatives, and also engaging company opportunities. And then yesterday at the Atlanta Chamber, I started talking to some of their leaders, and it dawned on me that part of the reason is that you've got the leadership in this town we're very much engaged in broadening the opportunity, growing the pie. That's something that you don't really see. Oftentimes, business leaders are too busy beyond their bottom line, and that's what you want to see. But it is the beauty of it, helping you make it. That's what it's helping me.
Well, we've noticed that as well with Mayor Andre Dickens and Governor Brian Kemp, who is just in Davos for the second time. We have Consul General Urs Brenneman here from Switzerland, and I know that the governor was there in Switzerland, drumming up more business.
It's a hardship, right? Davos in the winter.
Nice to be in Davos, but we're also very expensive, I heard at that time also.
Well, we don't mind 60-degree weather here in Atlanta. So we do benefit from political leadership. And I don't know if we have anybody from the Georgia Department of Economic Development here, but beyond the South Korean companies, what other companies are coming to Georgia? What other countries are you seeing specific interest in? And why are they coming?
Well, I think they're all coming. So let's start with the broad issue of the Inflation reduction. $169 billion. Biggest investment made anyway. It's not only about electric vehicles, it's about clean, it's about nuclear, about clean hydrogen, you name it, it's a very technology neutral investment that's intended to lead us by 2050 for achieving our goal of 80. That's great opportunity. In create opportunities in number one, we spent I'd say a year and a half. We've been able to leverage $350 billion in investment. That's almost 10 to 1 in terms of the leverage of investment to. That's an opportunity. So the CDRA as a way of on company. Get that. That money gets $2 billion, but it also already created or Micron. Well, you've also you've seen other, Samsung, speaking of Korea, Southwest, TSMC, and others building factories. Some of that is what we are trying to do, invest in ourselves, basically invest in our energy. That translates, well, I've already talked about the jobs, but there's also, in addition to the 17,000 jobs created in Georgia, we've seen almost 72,000 jobs. So we're seeing that interest in the local level. I think states, some quicker than others, are waking up to the opportunity. There are the kinds of investments that we're seeing now, long-term investments, also investments that will not be around forever, that you've got to take advantage of. I raised a 10-year budget. At some point, we'll reach our goal, and I think what you see, companies very much eager to invest here. To market, and they're also they believe that we are serious in trying to diversify our supply chain. Say from our vantage point, really what we're trying. Yes, we need jobs, yes, invest in the others, but also to diversify and secure our supply chain cannot be dependent on COVID. Minerals cannot be dependent on one.
I'm going to quote you, your opening remarks. You say diversifying our supply chain is imperative to the State Department, which is not something I expect from the State Department. I don't think of supply chains when I think of the State Department. So that brings me to the question of foreign policy versus domestic policy. Terms like diplomacy and foreign policy are just sort of tossed around. So what makes the IRA foreign policy?
Way. First of all, that line between foreign policy and domestic blurring and blurry. It was always blurry. And if you, I'm not digressing, I'll come back to you. But if you look at what Secretary Blinken has said about China, invest, align. The first one is invest. That what we mean by that is investing in the energy of farm, investing in the workforce, preparing our country, our cities, our states to keep going forward. And unless you're able to invest, you're not going to succeed. So that's why when I go to Japan, when I go to South Africa, I talk about investing. I talk about either critical minerals, try to diversify our supply chain, or semiconductors and opportunities there. But that line, that blurred line, something that we're very conscious of. Unless we're able to work with our partners, we're not going to be able to critical minerals. We need, we've got a lot of factors. We're going to need 42 times the amount of wood. We're going to succeed. That's foreign policy, that domestic profit. I don't know what it is. Frankly, I don't care. I just want to make sure that we get to the place where we want to go, to create the jobs and we do. So, let other people figure out if it's foreign policy or not. In my case, it's about economic security. And that's a concern those of us involved with policy. Leave that out to you.
No, it does answer my question. And since you brought up minerals, if you could just expand a little bit on why the race for chips is really a race ultimately for minerals, and how the United States is positioning itself to have enough lithium by 2050 and others.
So that's the challenge. Be it semiconductors, where, you know, years ago we produced, I think it was 40%. Or less. That needs, silicon minerals, one of them being uranium. Mineral you probably never heard of. Germanium is used in semiconductors as well. It's about 100, almost 100%. By China. A few months ago, China slapped export controls on Germany. In fact, our plan to get a chip manufacturer. Middle. 25%, 25 times manganese, 5 times cobalt. And most of that is owned, mined, or processed by the PRC. So what we're trying to do on the critical minerals front, domestically, obviously, but also realizing that we're not going to fix this ourselves by ourselves. We work with our allies and partners, which, by the way, not just the ones that are here, but others, are our secret sauce. We have the best partners and alliances in the world. So let's use them. And so we've created the Mineral Security Partnership, 13 countries, plus the European Union. Those 13 countries include Canada, the UK, Germany, France, Norway, Finland, and Korea, Australia. With that together, in critical minerals together, something that competitive advantage. Competitive advantage is you will go into countries and work with communities, benefit so that they benefit from projects. So lots of projects around the world, perfectly viable. So, streets, closing them. Some of these projects that take 10 to 20 years. If we're able to convince those communities, they will benefit. Affect the environment. Not really. I think we can bridge that gap. Got to do so quickly, and so through the MSP, we're doing it internationally. Here, it's bringing results. We have projects already. We've announced 5 projects in about a year. Critical mineral space. We're only getting started. So
it sounds like you mentioned subnational diplomacy is people domestic. And our Mayor Dickens, as part of the Truman Project, I think it's a subnational diplomacy project to really get ideas coming out of Atlanta to have national and international influence. But it sounds like you need to be doing that on the ground as well. How can the State Department improve its relationship with local communities all over the world, whether for minerals or other projects that are strategically important for the U.S.? Because as we know, we're hearing voices increasingly from the global South, or global majority, as some are now calling the global South, that they want to shift the relationship from transactional to participatory and equal exchange in terms of U.S. power abroad.
I think, again, it's a competitive advantage. We long ago, we abandoned to capture the country. They won. First call,
first day on the job, I called, having to get to just but plastics pollution. All the things that we wanted to do. A lot of time. And the one thing the countries want, they want our investment, they want us to invest. They are not looking to engage in. Oftentimes they'll say what is it? Two elephants battle, the grass between them gets cut. They don't want to be the grass, but they want they want engagement, and so that's what we are pursuing at the same time. Let's say that we talk about common values and things that so I think that's a competitive advantage. And you know what? The reception we're getting is good. We may not always agree, but countries know that we will.
Other than China, which is, competition with China is a leading motivator for U.S. foreign and domestic policy. But beyond China, what are the other forces, external forces, that are pressuring the Biden administration and the State Department to rethink it? COVID may be one of them, that are really shifting foreign policy right
COVID was a wisdom in that we learned about the importance of supply chains, which you always knew. When I was assistant secretary, even then we heard that 90% of our medical or vaccine components, guys, idiots, came from China or the field. So COVID made us realize that we needed to do a couple of things. We needed to work on our supply chain. We also needed to work on many of the policies that when COVID didn't respect working projects in America, where we were working for all countries. What about what we did right? COVID, supply chain, started to deal with corruption. Who would have put corruption and COVID together? Well, it turns out that in some countries in Latin America, 3 to 4% of their GDP, their budget, GDP, wasted corruption in the high medicine, they pay off. So I think supply chains, corruption, of course, Russia's aggression on Ukraine, we realized that we needed to certain values that we thought were universal, such as boundaries, before. So I would say supply chains for the Ukraine, Portugal, all those are making us supposed to be think. The work to also reassert some.
There are arguments that, focus on the clean energy transition or climate change can hurt our economy. Can hurt our economy. How are you balancing, obviously, in one conversation it's about the green energy transition, but now we're talking about mining, right? Which in most people's minds
The way you square that circle, first of all, I don't think the circle would be squared, but we would do that. Is you do it responsibly. Look at countries, learning a lot in this job, like for example, Finland. They either have to pass it. They've got some of the cleaners. You can do things right. Countries want to, Democratic Republic of the time wants to natural resources that big chunk of the world's exposure. This is our opportunity to emerge from poverty. They not only do they want responsible investment, but they also want to, want support as they try to invest in this. So the way you square that circle is our value. Our companies, by law, cannot bribe. From practices that they not the jail. The company shareholders won't let them. Their customers. What a number of renewable energy companies by supplying energy to the likes of Amazon, Microsoft. These companies, it's not. So that's our competitive. You know what? It's creating jobs, creating growth. There'll be hiccups along the road. But overall, it's a positive story. Last year, we had more investment in clean energy than fossil fuels. I should tell you something. The market, this is not only a good intention. The market is happening with what people.
Another priority of the Biden administration, it was part of Tony Blinken's foreign policy for the American people speech, was strengthening democracy. And sometimes it can be hard to connect democracy to economic development or just sort of solving the world's problems. Why is it in America's best interest for there to be functioning and healthy democracies worldwide?
Democracies are more stable. Democracies that are legal systems. Democracies want to engage. That's the basic premise of policy. There are costs at times, short term, but I think in the long term, policy to follow, and frankly, you've got to be able to go to sleep at night.
We're going to get to questions in just a minute, but on the topic of democracy and our values, which you talked about, I would, since we are in Atlanta, the cradle of the American civil rights, we are, 10 miles from the birthplace of Dr. Martin Luther King. How has Atlanta's civil rights legacy influenced American foreign
Foreign policy. Anna, the birthplace of Dr. King, stayed with Southern suffering. That is an inspiration. Texas. So, a way for us to be able to say, hey, we may not have the cleanest process in the world. But look at our values. Look where we've come. Look where we are. We're willing to get out of our comfort zone, talk about some uncomfortable with the realization, expectation. It provides a sense of self-confidence that we're able to engage in. Time provides a guiding principle for our policy. Work with countries that are not perfect. Their values and our values get us with it. So, from an Atlanta point of view, now, all around the world know the work of Dr. King. Africa, I was in Cape Town. Here, and where Dr. King, oftentimes when people talk about Nelson Mandela. I'm in prison. So, I think that's fine, we're not perfect, but we got here through hard work and that's what I talk to my family. Also, half the countries that are there, oftentimes, you know, what about the US and this and that? They say, yeah, that's right. But, get our mistakes, but you know what? So it actually was a kind of argument that even worked at home with your spouse.
Would you like to elaborate?
I'm not perfect, sweetie, but you know, we can do it.
But I'm willing to engage.
Yeah, exactly.
Who has a question for the Undersecretary? Carrie Bath.
Undersecretary, thank you for coming today, and I want to commend the Biden administration for a lot of the things that you're doing. But I wanted to push just a little bit more, and thank you, Rickey, for giving my usual entree to topic here of diversity and equity. In the news lately, there's been a lot of reports and evidence of significant backlash against ESG principles, environmental, social, and governance principles, as being a focus and guiding factor for investment and business development. Along with that is a retreat from diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so I would appreciate if you could talk just a moment about how diplomacy and particularly here in Atlanta, as we are kind of the cradle of civil rights and movement, and it continues to be a cultural value for America. How are we going from just talking about it to actually instilling? Are we supporting ESG as a valuable principle for investors in this country? Are we supporting diversity, equity, and inclusion, not only as a guidance and not only as tokenism, but actual building wealth and partnerships with minority-owned firms and partnerships with foreign countries and as they invest in this country as part of the IRA?
Great question. Question that I hope I can do justice. This is a complex one. Let's look at it internationally. From a competitive advantage, mind you, I'm a corporate guy. I think it's out of Wall Street. Always look, what's my angle? How do I get ahead of the pack? From a competitive advantage, ESG is a when I go to a country and I say, we'd like to do the mineral partnership, that's in mind. I can trot out what we mean by environmental principles. It's in black and white, and put it out there. That's a plus. If I can assure them that they, at the end of the day, they will end up with a better trained workers, environment that actually prevents. I've had presidents who I was drawn on as investment. I start talking about technical transfer of technology. They're always line up. That's what they want. So, and I've also had countries, government officials, who have said to me, I'm so glad that a U.S. company won this contract to build a road. That shows me, that tells me that they didn't pay anybody off. But 20 years from now, our road, we won't have a bunch of potholes because you found FCPA, with people behind bars that they do. So that's the competitive
But to me, I don't see that, I tout it, I see it as something that in my heart. Diversity, we're better diplomats. If we can again use that talent. I can go to Latin America. And basically, you take their accent and talk about their history in a way that somebody else may not. And then one of my colleagues may be able to go to Japan and do the same thing. That's a competitive advantage. And so I really don't see a contradiction of what we're trying to do. A more diverse workforce. It will allow us to engage our counterparts better. Internationally and then domestically, we'll be able to go into communities that normally haven't seen a State Department in a long time. And we'll be able to talk to them about what we can do. If I can talk about creating jobs through the IRA in Dalton, Georgia. And then as we try and gain support from the market, try to basically meet someone. That's what we're trying to do. So I'm a comic. And specifically, you're sitting to your right is someone who's been instrumental in helping me engage with veterans. Not only about racial and ethnic, it's about experience. We engage veterans all the time. We're having a joint Latino veterans event. What, a month? Yeah. And we're doing that all the time. And why? Because at the end of the day, we need to have a big department that is present. We do that. We'll be better than. We can go on forever. I hope that.
Yes, sir. My question is going to be a little bit different, addressing the foreign policy. America is a darling country. A lot of people, other countries and the communities expect America to be an ideal. Right now, what is going on in Gaza, Muslim Americans were expecting, like President Reagan, when Israel went to the Lebanon, put his feet, stop the civilian massacre. Why Mr. Biden has not done it so far? And hopefully,
Has done one, I'm sorry.
stop what is massacre is going on in Gaza. We the Muslim American voters expect our president to represent them, and stop. So it is I am bringing it to your attention so you could feedback and what is the Muslim Americans are doing, not vote. I mean, although it will hurt, the alternative is not any good, but nevertheless, this is what the feeling is going on. And I thought, since all these things relates to the business, there are 56 Muslim countries out there, and naturally it affects acceptance of America, the things that's going on in the foreign policy. Any comment will be appreciated.
I'm a non-political public servant. So I guess the only thing I say is that conflict is a long-running conflict. Presenting it clear and not to humanitarian crisis, and we just tell you that my colleagues at the State Department front and center for 7 years.
help alleviate the human suffering, try and find a solution, require compromise. Not, I will not try and come up with a tragedy. And Steve, I thought my look at country is providing the most aid, humanitarian aid, as they like, for advocating for crossing. It's all I know.
Thank you, Undersecretary, Undersecretary to visit Atlanta.
Yeah.
Atlanta, and welcome to Atlanta. You visit the right place. You know that the Georgia is the right place for the foreign policy work in state level, especially in Georgia. Your foreign policy brought Korean investment to Atlanta and Georgia. So you already told us that since the pandemic, COVID pandemic, global supply chain has changed a lot. The U.S. and Korea also, we are strengthening our supply chain with reliable and like-minded country. That's why that Korean companies, they invest more in the United States because I remember that before the pandemic, the first country Korean company invested was the China, but the Korean companies moving from the China to the United States, and some they go to the India. So that's why you visited Hana Kyocell because the Hana Kyocell also increased the investment in the United States in Georgia. So I guess that foreign policy really works in Georgia. Your policy is strengthening global supply chain with a reliable country. So you know that your president and Korea and Japan, three head of state, they met together last year, and they agreed to increase the supply chain and economic relation among the three countries. So still that Korean investment in the United States is on the way. So I see that more investment from Korea to Georgia in other states. So especially your policy IRA boosted our Korean company to encourage our Korean company to invest more in the sector of EV and solar panels. So I'm very happy with that as a consul general here. So, my small question, you know, Korea also increasing the strengthening our clean and renewable energy in our society. But one issue is that nuclear energy, is it to be boosted or encouraged by the government? But the current Korean government decided to boost, promote that nuclear energy also as a clean energy. So I don't know exactly that the United States also in a position to promote that nuclear energy in your country, or that, for example, Georgia recently reopened that nuclear reactor here. So just your policy is leave that nuclear energy to the market, or that your federal government has the plan to intend to promote that the nuclear energy as a clean energy or the for environment.
Thank you for the comment. Let me point out that, great to see. that Our companies are also investing in Korea. That's some of the biggest foreign investors in Korea, West companies, and that's something. As part of, our relations have, I think, have strengthened them. Always, I'm reminded when I go to Korea that less than a year ago, President Biden and President of Japan and Korea were in Camp David. And they actually agreed to work together on several items, mark a major achievement. How to strengthen allies and partners. Yes, they are some of, I think, the competitive advantages. Nuclear, the IRA is technology neutral. I will tell you, I can't speak for the domestic industry, but I will tell you that we spend a lot of time dealing with nuclear countries. They try to prevent the energy shortages for nuclear. I'm thinking of Romania, Moldova, places that we have, Poland, are places where we have been working with that company with technology. So we will continue to do that, and with the IRA, hopefully we will be able to get some of that technology back to the US.
Do we have any final questions? Oh, Billy Chung from the Taipei Economic and Cultural Office.
Thank you. Thank you, President. Thank you, Under Secretary. My name is Billy Chung from Consular Officer at the Taipei Economic Cultural Office in Atlanta and the de facto Taiwan Consulate. Do you mind if I have two questions? So the first one, would you name the platforms that works for, state and the local levels? For example, like Select USA, that, Taiwan has been the largest delegation to the Select USA, which has been a great platforms that for the global businessmen and business entrepreneurs to come to US and find opportunities. We work with the state level and also the local levels. Are there any other opportunities like Select USA, and how has Select USA has been, beneficial to cities like Atlanta or other cities? I know Taiwan is not a big investor here in Atlanta, but we are a big investor in Arizona. And the second question is about image. So I've noticed that people, Taiwanese people love USA. And with Costco revenue in Taiwan is the highest around the world. And but for other countries, do you think that image will work better if you maybe I should put it in this way about what do you think about public diplomacy, like branding the US image to other countries, making more friends with the US that would bring benefits, like the investment here in the US, and what efforts that you have been putting in these persuasions, and what would you suggest for cities like Atlanta that they should, in what kind of strategy they should talk to their foreign partners? Thank you.
Look, Select USA is run out of the Department of Commerce, and it's been very successful. We need to do more of that. Foreign investment, jobs created by foreign investment tend to pay more, better jobs than oftentimes than local jobs, and hire, provide more training and the like. So we want to increase
foreign investment. We've got other programs. Well, yesterday I was talking to, the Atlanta Chamber about going with that. Couple of countries. Some of them have trade missions. I want cities to feel that they can engage our embassies directly. We've got to do more. That's what we'll do this one. In terms of image, we continue to do our best. Secretary Blinken has a lot of emphasis on image and making sure that we get our story out there. I remember once hearing that U.S. had built the Cairo water system, water and sewage, main undertaking, but it was underground, so nobody knew about it. So we've got to find ways of, telling our story, not bragging, but just telling it accurately. No country in the world has done more in terms of AIDS prevention. 25 million people in Africa saved as a result of PEPFAR created by President Bush. So when I go to Africa and people say, why doesn't the U.S. get more involved in Africa? I'll say, how about 25 million people? Say, how about 5 million babies that survive? We got to tell our story. It's an ongoing challenge, and frankly, one thing we have to do that.
We have time for one more question. Great.
Hi, my name is Sebastian. I'm with the Consul of Argentina here in Atlanta. I know that Secretary Blinken is traveling to the Argentina.
Great tomorrow, right?
Tomorrow, yeah. But not today.
I don't know what he's going to do, right? So,
That was my question. No, I think that there is a conversation there, especially about what we talked today about minerals, lithium, and was wondering within your office, there are any priorities for this? And secondly, since we are here in the council, what Georgia or Atlanta can engage in that conversation to Argentina?
Great question. And we've actually been engaging with Argentina on lithium already. As you know, lithium is in Argentina, run by the province, not by the federal government. We've had, through the Mineral Security Partnership, we had one session where we invited the 3 provincial governors and the Minister of Mines, federal minister, come and speak to all of the companies in the industry. We have about 100 companies on the street. We basically wanted to hear about their projects, where they were going. We plan to do that. We're already talking to the government. I'm doing that again with the new government. I'm planning to go to Argentina. Deal here. Early. So when they hear about a project, I'd like to do is hear about the project. Say, we are looking for it. To contact can act as their publicist. My goal when projects.
Thank you all for joining today's program, Foreign Policy and Fernandez. Surgeon who produced today's program with our graduate students. Thank you for the IT and facilities. Please use the QR code on our screen. Council, if you pre-purchase lunch, it's right out here. We'll see you at the next program. Thank you so much.